All right, thank you for coming today, everybody. I appreciate everybody taking an hour out of your evening to come and join us to talk about undergraduate research. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize the Okanagan Silex peoples on whose traditional and unceded territory we live, work, and study on. In this hour-long session today, we're going to have about 20 minutes of us talking, giving you some information about undergraduate research. And then the rest of the time we want to devote to questions and answers and hearing from our student panel. We hope you enjoy the session, and please do, as you think of questions, add them to the Q&A. We will go through all of your questions. We'll make sure we answer anything that you have and direct you to whatever resources you need. So I'm just going to start off with a quick video here. From one of last year's NSERC USRA winners, Joel.
Living through this pandemic has really driven home the importance of respiratory health. Getting to work on a project where we're developing an application to minimize the form factor of portable VO2 breath analysis was really exciting. Hi, I'm Joel Johnson. I'm a fourth year electrical engineer at UC Okanagan.
The USRA program provides an awesome exploratory environment for students.
Hey, Samantha, you just have to unmute yourself.
Privilege. They really facilitated us to push the cutting edge of colorimetric sensing and optical sensing.
I've been shocked time and time again by how far undergrads can push research programs. Undergrads can play a very active role in the research, and they can play a very important role as well.
It was a great privilege to get to do research. It was a really great stepping stone to grad school, future research, and work in industry.
Okay, so thanks so much for watching that. Sorry if the sound did cut out a bit there in the middle. That video and a few more videos of students who've done research in the past summer are available on our website. I'll show you where when we get to that link so that you can see some examples of some of the work that other students have gotten up to. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is what is undergraduate research? So at its core, undergraduate research could be defined as an inquiry or investigation conducted by an undergraduate student that makes an original intellectual or creative contribution to the discipline. And this definition can take a lot of forms. You have a lot of freedom in the types of work that you want to do, and you can base it very much on what your goals and interests are. This experiential learning will augment what you're learning in the classroom and give you some really great ways to explore your interests. So why to get involved? Research isn't just necessarily a pathway to becoming a professor, but it can offer a wide range of skills and experiences that can help in lots of different ways. You can get hands-on experience, you can build your professional network, you're going to be in a lab chock full of other PhDs, master's students, professors, and often industry partners as well. So that can be super great for that. You can also explore an area of interest. So if you are thinking of going into a certain field, but you're not sure, you can test the waters a little bit through research. You can even try out the practice of research itself and see if you do like the idea of asking a question and working your way through the research process. And then the final thing you might want to get involved to do is to be able to publish papers or present at conferences, which, aside from giving you a nice warm feeling at the end of the day, will also be something really nice and tangible that you can put on your resumes, that you can talk about in cover letters, and that will really show that your skills in writing and presenting and communication are all up to par. So there are lots of different ways that you can get involved in undergraduate research, but to get involved, you are going to have to put yourself out there a little bit and seek out opportunities. Don't be afraid of a little bit of rejection, but keep trying different attitudes. Often students will start out early in their undergraduate research career volunteering in labs and showing up whenever they have time in between classes and kind of just throwing themselves into it. But there are also a lot of paid opportunities that you can do to get involved in research. And that you can also do part-time or these extended intensive research opportunities that are the types of things that you'll end up publishing in papers and being able to brag about to all your friends. The resources available for students doing research and new funding and all that kind of stuff are being added all the time. But today I want to talk about a couple specifically because they have deadlines coming up, and they're the ones that a lot of our students are most interested in taking part in. So first I want to talk about the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada Undergraduate Student Research Award. I realize that's a very long acronym and that there's a lot of words on this slide, but all of this information that's on this slide is also on our website. So I'll direct you to where that is again later so that you can read it in detail. But this award is essentially a competitive and prestigious award that will give you full-time employment for about 4 months. This award will pay most of your salary, and then the faculty member who supports you will pay the rest. The basic eligibility is listed here. So essentially this is an award for Canadian citizens or permanent residents who've completed all of first year at a minimum. Then the process is pretty straightforward, even though it doesn't seem like it. So you do have to find a supervisor who wants to work with you, and our student panelists can talk a little bit about that and what that tends to look like. You are then going to have to complete an application form, and there's 2 parts to it, one part of which your supervisor completes, one part that you complete. You're going to assemble a bunch of supporting documents, and the big one here that I want to point out is that you do have to include transcripts, and you do have to include a transcript for UBC. It seems a little weird to be submitting it, but because it's going to the government, not to us here, you will need to do that. And that's probably the #1 stress-inducing part about this application is if you work really hard on the application and then leave the transcripts to the last minute. So get on those early if you can, and make sure to review the instructions for submission and follow them really carefully. You do have to submit both to NSERC and to SOE to be reviewed, and you'll be notified in March if you've been successful. There is a link below that UBC has prepared that really provides a lot of information about the NSERC Undergraduate Student Research Award. So I would strongly recommend checking that link out. And that link is also linked from our website as well. The second award I'm going to talk about is kind of like a bit of a cousin of the NSERC USRA, and that's the International Undergraduate Student Research Award. This is a competitive award that was created within UBC for students who may not be eligible for NSERC. It's a bit confusing though, because the process and the timelines are similar, but not quite exactly the same. There are slightly different eligibility requirements to do with how many credits you've completed. You do have to be an international student in order to get this award. And the application process for this one doesn't require you to include transcripts. And the application, you're not applying anywhere else, you're just applying to SOE. The timeline is really similar, and that link below at the bottom, that soeadvising.ok.ubc.ca/professional-development is the main page where we've posted the details about both of these awards. You should have also received an email about it as well. So I recommend read those pages in detail, follow all the links, click on everything. And if you do still have any specific questions about your eligibility, your plans, your projects, please just email us at soe.advising with those questions, or book an appointment to speak to me if you've got lots of questions. Any broader questions about the award experience or what kind of work students tend to do, ask those questions of our student panel. They're going to be by far the best experts in that sort of thing. The other thing I want to mention is that there are other professional development opportunities. So research isn't the be all end all, but even if you are interested in research, those 2 awards aren't the only way to get involved either. A lot of our faculty do have their own funding. Sometimes it comes through industry partners, sometimes it comes through other grants or achievements that they have. And there's no one single place that you can go to find them. Some people have had success going onto the research lab's websites. Some people have had success reaching out to professors and contacting them directly, and opportunities are often available that way. You can also go through career services. So if you're looking to develop your skills in lots of different ways, not just research, there are positions posted to the career services job board, and they'll have full-time summer positions as well as part-time positions during the academic year that you can take advantage of. Career services also hosts events throughout the year, and they can help you with resumes, cover letters, that sort of thing. The final thing I'll mention, because it also has a deadline this month, is the Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Impact Funding. So it's a little out of scope of our conversation today, but essentially if you have a grand idea and a team of other students that you want to work with to see it through and just need a bit of seed funding, this fund is there to help support you with that. So if that's something that interests you, please do take a quick screenshot of that link and follow up on that on your own as well. And there are new opportunities coming available every year. There's something new, it feels like, that comes out for students to take advantage of. So make sure that you are checking your email. Make sure that you do have SOE's social media accounts on your on your phone so that you get notified as things come up. We know it's hard to check your email. We know you get a lot, but there is definitely a lot of good stuff coming up there. So please, if you haven't yet, please do continue to add questions into the Q&A. I'd like to pass the presentation over to my colleague Shannon from Graduate Studies.
Thanks, Samantha. Hello, everybody. My name is Shannon Hole, and I'm the graduate advisor. My main role is to advise students. This would be master's students and PhD students, to give them information about their programs, about their program progression, their courses, perhaps what a process may be. Maybe they're wondering about, well, there's just so many things people can wonder about. And essentially, I'm the first point of contact. So therefore, if we have a student who has a question, they come and ask me. I will either know the answer. I sincerely hope I know the answer, but if I don't, I will just direct the student to the appropriate resource to help them. I'm also a great resource for admissions. Specifically, I would say now, since we're speaking to our undergraduate students, I'm a really good resource if you are thinking of possibly moving up into our graduate program, or for you, it would be transferring, or not transferring, but applying into one of our master's programs. So I can give you some suggestions on the applications, what the eligibility is, the deadlines, just really any question you have about, hey, I'm thinking I want to be a graduate student. What are my next steps, or what do I need to think about? I'm definitely the person for that. Yeah, now we can just flip slides, please. Thank you. So another thing to know is we have two types of graduate programs, or for masters. We have the Masters of Applied Science, which is really a research-based master's program that also has some courses. So it would be 6 graduate level courses and a thesis. So if you're thinking that research is an area for you, this is likely the program that you would transition to. You try some undergraduate research, perhaps that will make you think, wow, I'm really interested in this idea or in this concept or this area of study. Then I think I'd like to come and progress my knowledge in the master's program. This is likely the master's program that will be for you. But we also have another great program, and that's our Masters of Engineering. This Masters of Engineering, or MEng as we call it, is strictly course-based. It's 10 courses. And then at the end of the year, students also have the opportunity to apply for and be involved in an internship program, which is a great way for students to transition from their program into industry. If I forgot to mention, but if you were in a Master's of Applied Science, that is also a great way to either go into industry, or if perhaps you're thinking you'd like to progress into a progress into a PhD, this is the avenue that you would want to take. A Master's of Engineering, or MEng course-based program, does not flow into a PhD. And I'll go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So one of the big questions that I hear from undergraduate students all the time is, first off, is what is a master's program? Which I think I kind of gave you some very, very brief outline of that earlier. But now that you think, yes, I'd like to apply to the master's program, how do I do it? Really, our undergraduate students are in the perfect position to transition into a master's program. For your requirements for your GPA, the requirements are for your 3rd and 4th year courses, you need at least a 76%. And I say this because a lot of students think, oh, a master's is just too high. Only the students who have, like, I don't know, a 95% average could ever possibly get into a master's program. And that really isn't the case. Our students are not judged just based on their grades. It's your research, it's how you work in a lab, it's obviously your transcript, but there are just so many things, or your relationship with a faculty member or a supervisor. So if you're thinking, I would love to be a master's student, and you have an average of 76% or above, you're definitely considered to be an eligible student. And beyond that, if you're a current student, you need 3 references. So 3 references from an instructor and a 76% average. And at least you can say, yes, this is an attainable goal for me. And I would also say that for undergraduate students here at our school, you have one of the best positions possible because you have a direct link to our faculty members who could be your potential supervisor. For a lot of our students from all over the world who would just love to come and study at UBCO, one of their biggest challenges is how can I connect with someone to say, I'd like to be on your research team. But as students here in our school, you can definitely say, hey, I've been in your lab, or maybe not the lab, but I've been in your classroom. I'm really interested in your area of study. Perhaps I can come in and join as an undergraduate student, which is why we're here with our webinar today. There we go. And I'm just going to move on to the next slide, please. Last but not least, kind of what I've been saying, I am the perfect point of contact if you are thinking of joining a master's program. You can reach me through PD Portal, which I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with, or you can email me at engineering.graduate@ubc.ca. I get that email all the time, and I will definitely answer any question that you have. And also I've provided for you on a link is how to apply. Thank you. And I think now we're going over to Marie.
Thanks, Shannon.
You're welcome.
So I'm Marie Reed. I'm one of the engineering advisors for the School of Engineering. I'm going to be the moderator for today's panel. My background is in mechanical engineering, and I completed my Bachelor's of Applied Science at the UBC Okanagan campus in 2013. A little bit about my I guess, education and career background. After graduation, I worked at a company called USRA, designing sawmill and planer mill equipment for a few years. I had really enjoyed the research and development side of engineering during my undergraduate degree, as I was able to gain a lot of hands-on experience in this area by working in the Advanced Control and Intelligent Systems Research Lab. And so when I started working in the field, I also became involved in research and development for our products. So after a few years working in the field, I decided that I wanted to change the area that I was working in and move into the automotive industry. So since my background was in mechanical engineering and not specifically automotive engineering, I reached out to my professor for a reference letter for the research I had done in his lab during my undergrad. And he informed me that his lab was actually expanding their research into the area of self-driving cars and was wondering if I was interested in doing a master's in that research area. So I spent some time looking into what was a Master's of Applied Science and what that looked like at the UBC Okanagan campus, and ultimately decided that this would be a good way for me to gain that more specialized knowledge that I wanted to enter the automotive field. So over the first 6 months of my master's, I really focused on learning a lot about the self-driving car technology and where it was at. And I also became involved in an industry project that used the same decision-making code and processes that I was planning on using with my self-driving car research. However, this industry project was actually working with forest fire pilots, and the end goal was to estimate the forest fire pilot's fitness for duty. And that was through using this decision-making system that allows us to sort of emulate or simulate human reasoning. So as I got more involved in this project, I actually decided to change my master's focus to this industry project. And I went in that direction instead for my master's. Throughout my master's, I also became involved with engineering outreach for the School of Engineering, which ultimately led to the position that I'm currently in today. So the pathway for me from undergrad working and into my master's is not necessarily the most typical route. However, I do like to share my background as this personal experience really allowed me to follow what I was passionate about. And that my advice is if you follow what you're passionate to learn more about, it will continue to allow you or continue to open new doors for you. So we have some amazing panelists here today who are going to share their experiences. So I'd now like to pass it over to Jashan to start us off with their introductions.
Thanks, Marie. Hi, everyone. I'm Jashan Bacchal. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering student at UBC. Over the past 3 years, I've had the chance of working at 2 on-campus laboratories, namely the Advanced Thermofluidic Laboratory and the Center of Transportation Land Use Laboratory. I'm currently not working in a research lab, but I am the undergraduate research ambassador for UBCO. But my most recent research experience was working as a co-op research assistant at the Center of Transportation and Land Use Research Laboratory, where I worked on analyzing the demand of shared electric scooter services in Kelowna. My work involved a lot of data analysis using a software called ArcGIS and MS Excel. And by the end of my research, I got to publish a research paper, which was really exciting. It was published under the Transportation Research Board in December 2020. So that was a highlight of my research experience there. And I'm so happy to be one of the panelists today and hope this event can help you all in some ways.
Great, thanks so much, Jashan. Now I'm going to pass it over to Josh for his introduction.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Stroh, and I recently finished my PhD in May of 2021, and now I've jumped into my new position, which is a postdoctoral fellow at UBC Okanagan. Currently, I'm the lab manager for the High Performance Powertrain Materials Laboratory, which is led by my supervisor, Dr. Dimitri Sidiako. Our team is developing new lightweight materials for next generation automotive and marine powertrains, focusing on minimizing the carbon footprint of the transportation industry. So every day we get new projects where we're working with Ford or NEMAC or let's say Mercury Marine, where they have a problem that we have to solve for them basically. And most recently, we've begun venturing into the effects of hydrogen on these lightweight materials with the target goal of improving efficiency of next generation hydrogen fuel internal combustion engines. It's a super rewarding position, and it's been like this since my undergrad, master's, PhD. So hopefully you have some motivation to jump into the program like we all have. Thanks.
Great, so thanks so much. So before we get into our prepared questions, I just want to remind everyone to, if you have any questions for Samantha or Shannon or any of the panelists as we go through this presentation, please feel free to submit in the Q&A, and right after the panel presentation, we will start answering those questions. So if you can just go to the next slide, that would be great. So the first question is for Jashan. So how can a research ambassador assist undergraduate students?
Thanks so much for that question, Marie. So we have 3 research ambassadors on campus now, and the initiative is really new. It just started in September 2021, and we can assist undergraduates with various ways to get involved in research on campus. You can directly book appointments with any one of us and talk to us about any questions or doubt you might have about research opportunities present on campus. You could just book appointments with us to just talk about the volunteer opportunities present, or even if you're considering a paid position. For example, when I first started, I knew that I wanted to volunteer at a lab, but I didn't know what to expect in a lab environment. I didn't know what goes on inside a lab setting. So if you have any questions like that, you could book appointments with any of the ambassadors and we could clear your doubts. We could also help you with the application process of how to approach a professor, how to write good emails so that it catches the professor's eye. And the recent appointments that I've had with some students, I know that some students, even before applying, they hold themselves back because they think that a certain GPA is required, even just to volunteer, or you already need to possess a certain set of skills. So if you have any questions like that or any doubts that are holding you back, you could book appointments with us and we can clarify all your doubts. So we're basically here to assist you in your research journey and how to get started. And we could also talk to you about all the paid positions that are present on campus. The NSERC and IUSRA were elaborated by Samantha today, but there are other positions too. For example, the work study program. That's the way that I got into my research. I think the jobs for that are posted mid-March for the summer. You could also do the work study program throughout fall and winter. And if you have any doubts about that, the application process, how to get started, you could book appointments with any one of us and we can walk you through that. There are other opportunities like the MRF program. The deadline for that has already passed for this year, but maybe for next year, if you're thinking about the MRF program, you could definitely ask us any questions. There's also an Indigenous Research Mentorship program that you could look into. So we could assist you with different application processes and again, how to approach professors. We also send out monthly newsletters about undergraduate research opportunities present on campus. And the newsletters include any upcoming events, for example, like this one, and the important dates and deadlines. We also host events where undergraduate students involved in research can share their experiences and tell you about how they began their research journey. So our basic initiative is, the idea behind the initiative is just assisting and being mentors, just so that no one's completely lost. And even if you're interested, but there's something holding you back, you could just reach out to us and ask us questions and we'd help you out. All this information about different awards, funding opportunities, it's all present on our website, which is really easy to look up. You just have to search undergraduate research opportunities and you could see our website, and all the information is organized according to the faculty. So there's a really good research reference guide for School of Engineering that has information on all the research that different professors do, and it's really well organized according to the labs. So you can look at our website, and if you still think that you have problems or you need more help, you can for sure reach out to us. And again, I've had students ask me, what does a lab environment look like? Like, they're really interested in research, but they're just holding themselves back because they think that they already need a set of skills to get started. But don't hold yourself back, just talk to us and hopefully we can assist you in starting your research journey.
Thanks so much, Jashan. I just noticed in the Q&A, there's two questions that are very applicable to what you're just talking about. So I'm just going to ask them to you now.
For sure.
They're actually the same question. So it is, how do they book an appointment with an undergraduate research ambassador?
You could just email me. Sorry, I should have made that clear, but you could just send me an email. I think my email address is present on the slides, on the presentation slides for today's event too. Or you could go to the website and see my email and just email me.
Awesome. That's great. I did share the website to everyone in the chat that Jashan is talking about, and your email's on the last slide. So that's perfect. Great. So now we're going to move on to the next question or questions, which are for Josh. So Josh, the questions are, how did you first become involved in research as an undergraduate student? And how did this experience lead you to research as a master's student? And finally, what are the benefits of graduate research?
Thank you, Marie. Sure, I'll jump starting with the first one. So when I was in my third year of engineering, I was enrolled in ENGR 377, which is one of the mandatory classes, and you learn all about, for at least mechanical engineers, you learn about the basics of engineering, manufacturing, machining, and design. And one of the classes spoke about casting, and it was something that I'd never really experienced, and it was super intriguing. So I reached out to the professor of that class. And when we were talking for maybe about 10 minutes, he quickly realized that my interests aligned better with a new professor that just joined the team, which was Dr. Sidiaco. And so he organized a meeting between the two of us. And when we were talking, we had the exact same interests. We wanted to work on cars. We wanted to experience anything to do with powertrains and that kind of world. And so he quickly welcomed me into his team, which at the time was no one. It was just me and him. So I was really fortunate that he didn't have anyone, but yeah, it was a lot of work. And the best part of it was he came directly from industry. So he had about 40 years or 30 years of experience in industry. So when he came to UBC, he had all of those industry contacts, all of the projects he was still working on. And now that shifted to be completed by a research team at UBC, which was us. So that sort of answers the first one. Just go talk to any of the professors and see what they have to offer. I would say there's probably enough information on UBC's pages to see at least what kind of research they're into. And if something aligns with your interest, just go see them. So how did this experience lead you to your research as a master's? Well, so since I started doing research in my third year, and I ended up actually applying for the NSERC USRA award and won it for that summer, which was about 4 months worth of pay. So I continued research over the summer. And following that, throughout my fourth year of engineering, I also did anywhere from, 15 to 20 hours of research each week to continue all of this kind of fun that I was learning about in this new world. And so by the time that I was done, if I wouldn't have done a master's, it would have been kind of all of this work. Yes, you gain experience, but I had already enough research that I probably could have wrapped up a master's very, very quickly if I wanted to. So if I have any kind of suggestions, the earlier you jump into research and the earlier you find something you love in the research world, the better, as it can just speed up the process later. So the benefits of graduate research, there's tons. So I made a little list because I wanted to make sure that I hit on a few. But when you're in undergraduate, you learn all about all of the basics and theories about and basically fundamentals of a broad range of engineering. They want to expose you to all sorts so you can find your interest. Not everyone knows from day one or from high school, and that's awesome. But if you want to dive a little bit deeper, that's where a master's program, or at least research in general, comes to play. So you got to learn way more about, let's say, one topic or two topics than what you could do in your undergrad. For a lot of the research labs on campus, you actually get to work directly with industry. So for example, in my case, we worked with an international casting manufacturer called EC. We are currently working with Ford, GM, and another manufacturing company called NEMAC. And so seeing these problems come in from industry where they're experts and they don't know how to solve it, and they come to you where you have to read lots of papers, do lots of experiments, solve the problem, present a paper or a report to them, and show them that you've solved the issue, and they can actually implement all of your suggestions, hopefully. And that's exactly what happened in my case. The first project I was working on was for Mercury Marine. They had a transmission gear case that kept cracking, and we did a bunch of research on it, figured out the root cause, provided our method of how they could solve this issue, and they implemented it. And the marine gear case has been out in the world for the last 3 years, working just fine. So that's super fun. It feels good to do that, and it definitely looks good on your resume if you can have those contacts and papers. Just like Jashan was saying, that's awesome that she got a paper out so soon. So that's another benefit, is depending on your professor, if you do a substantial amount of work, or they're into publishing or presenting at conferences, you do have the opportunity to do, you hopefully do have the opportunity to do both, which means a little bit of travel, or at least online presentations to industry leaders and other people who've been in the industry for tens of years and know a lot of information, and they can be blown away by what you're studying, which is great. So I think that kind of answers most of it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Josh. So the last question is actually for both of our panelists. So we'll start with you, Jashan. What has been your favorite part of your research experience?
Thanks for that question, Marie. I think when I started working as a volunteer student at the Advanced Thermofluidic Laboratory, just those initial phases, the first time when you're actually learning how your concepts are applied to the real world, that was so exciting for me. And I got to design some gas sensor components and then 3D print those and use it for my testing. So all of that just got me so excited when a concept is actually come to life, and especially as a second year. So you realize the amount of power a volunteer student can have in a lab. So that was my favorite part of my research experience.
Well, that sounds great. It's always fun to be able to learn about or do your first research project and something successful for the first time. I'm going to pass it over to Josh to share his favorite research experience now.
Awesome. Thank you, Marie. I think I have two. One was more of a wow factor. I think in my 4th year, I got to go to a nuclear reactor out in Ontario and in Australia, and being in what I considered something that was dangerous most of my upbringing, and seeing all of the security and going through probably an hour worth of questioning and all of that just to get in each day was awesome. I loved it. And the other thing is conferences. It's one thing being able to write a report, but being able to articulate what you've been studying for the last, I don't know, X amount of months in front of people that know the industry in and out, and them ask questions because they're genuinely just interested in what you have to say, is a pretty cool experience. So I'd say those are my two favorite.
That's great. That's pretty cool that you're able to go to Australia and go into a nuclear plant. I don't think you're the only person I know who's ever been in one, so might have to ask you some more questions about that later.
Of course.
So we do have a question here that's been submitted in the Q&A. So as we answer, please feel free to keep submitting questions. I think I'm going to pass it to Jashan first, and then Josh, obviously, if you have any thing to add, please feel free to do so afterwards. So what's a good place to start for undergraduate research? All the awards seem to require you to already have an understanding of what you want to do, and I rarely find research opportunities on the work study job board.
That's a great question, and it's really true that not a lot of work study positions are posted. But like I said, they'll be posted mid-March, so do keep an eye out during that time. But a great place to start is volunteering. That's what I did too. I started volunteering in September in my 2nd year. And then my supervisor told me that if I continued in the lab, she would offer me a paid position for the summer, but I decided to switch labs. So I know volunteering, you may be thinking that, oh, you're wasting your time, or maybe your friends are getting paid, but it's a great place to start. And you could also, you could start anytime, which is the best part of volunteering. Like you could start midway through semester. You could start volunteering anytime. And then right now would also be a great time because the deadline for the NSERC and the IUSRA is February 21st. So you could offer to start volunteering at a lab right now and then talk to your professor if they would fund you for the summer. So for the work study positions, do keep an eye out during mid-March, but until then, volunteering is a great place to start, I think. And it's always worth it. Like that experience helped me get co-op jobs. So it doesn't matter if you're being paid or a volunteer, it's the experience that matters.
Thanks, Jashan. Josh, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
I would only add to it. I know that things are a little confusing with COVID, with going in and out of campus and whatnot. But if you do have the opportunity, and we are all allowed, find a professor that you see online even if you just look up courses on like I don't even know what page it is, but the UBC page, and you see that they're teaching like thermodynamics or they're teaching material science or whatever it is, just email them. Now, since I'm our lab manager for our research group, I probably get, I would say 4 emails a week from students reaching out, saying, hey, I'm in 3rd year, here's my resume, I would love to join your team if there's a spot. And depending on the time of year, if we have spots, then I definitely have the interview with them and see if there's a position. And most of the time I have the interview with them anyways. And if I find someone who's like perfect for our group, even if we don't have room, we make room. People will always graduate, and there's volunteer positions, which are wonderful. And there's lots of random paid positions as well. So I would just say, reach out to the teachers, to the professors, and if you connect with them well, they'll probably find you a position regardless of if they have one.
Thanks so much. So we have a couple follow-up questions related to this. So Josh, I'm actually going to start with you as you're a lab manager. So I feel like you have some experience with students emailing about volunteer positions. So this student is wondering, do they need a certain grade average to get a volunteer research experience position? And how does scheduling work alongside classes? So I know this might be different for different labs, but maybe you could share sort of how you do this in your lab.
Yeah, it definitely differs between labs. When some professors just join the school, they need people right away, so you can luck out regardless of grades and stuff like that. But I would say that 90% of the time, professors are wanting you to go into a master's. So let's say you're in your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th year. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of time for, let's say, me as a lab manager, or for them as a supervisor, or other graduate students to train you and teach you. And we're hoping that at the end of the day, this will lead to you joining our team in like a more permanent position. So I would say, as long as you have above that 76% average where you could possibly go into a master's, that's a good thing that I think a lot of labs will look at. It's not mandatory. Sometimes labs just need help for a year. And as long as you're open with your schedule and you say, hey, I'm really focused on school during, like, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I have Thursdays off and Tuesdays off. Those are the kind of information we need. So it's really all up to you for what you can handle. You just have to tell the group. Don't say you can work 40 hours a week if you can only work 2. And working 2 is just fine. They'll find work for you if that's all it is.
That's great. Thank you. That's the same experience I had when I worked as an undergrad. Is depending on the term, I had different hours I could work, and I found the professors were super accommodating. So that's great. So Samantha, I'm going to pass this question to you because I feel like this would be good to answer aloud as a overview again for NSERC USRA, and I think it would be good maybe to clarify also for the IURA as well. So the question is, do you need to submit an application through both the NSERC portal and SOE?
Yes, you do. So if you are applying for NSERC USRA, if you apply to SOE and you haven't applied to the NSERC Government of Canada website, you cannot get the award because the government won't have you in their system. And the reverse is true as well. If you apply to the government website, but you haven't been vetted and approved by SOE, that you also will not be successful. So for NSERC, you must apply to both places, and you must apply to both places by the deadline. For the IUSRA, that's the one that you only need to apply to one place. So you only need to apply to SOE, and all the instructions are in that link on the professional development page on our School of Engineering Advising website.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Samantha. So the next question I'm going to pass to Jashan. Are there other great research events or opportunities that are available throughout the year?
one of my favorite opportunities would be the MRF program. And like I said, unfortunately for this academic year, the deadline has passed, but you could definitely look into that for the next year. It's called Multidisciplinary Undergraduate Research Projects in Health. So it's one student from engineering, one from science, and one from any other faculty. You get together, form a research team, and you work under different professors. Sorry, you work under one supervisor, but I find it really exciting. And this is one that runs throughout the semester. So this is definitely my favorite one.
That's great. Besides that, from a School of Engineering perspective, we aren't hosting any specific research related events. If you're interested in research, like Jashan and Josh have stated, I would recommend looking through the different labs that are available and connecting with the professor directly or the lab manager to see the opportunities that are available or to learn more about potential opportunities. So the next question is going to be for both of our panelists. So I'm going to start with Josh. Can you tell us a bit about your role and responsibilities when you worked in the research lab? So I'll let you pick which one, because I'm sure you've had several.
Yeah, so there is a lot, and it changes since we have a lab group of about 7 students. Every student goes down a different path, and everyone's graduate experience is slightly different. Everyone's research experience is slightly different. So when I started, our whole field is material science. So mainly what we had to do is we had these big components that we had to cut up in the machine shop or with some small saws in our labs. And then we had to do sample preparation. So we had to polish a surface. We had to look under microscopes. We had to kind of characterize what everything looked like. And after that, if we saw good things or bad things, we would put the results into a little Word document and show them to our supervisor. And he'd say, oh, this is great. As a follow-up, why don't you do this type of test? And so then you do that type of test and you show them the results again. And eventually what happens is you kind of get promoted into another position where you've proven that you can do this entry-level research. And now you have to be a little bit more independent. So instead of always just showing the results and asking for what do you do next, now you start asking the questions to yourself. Okay, this is really cool. How can I link this to what I read in a few papers? So you do a bunch of literature review. You say, can I do this experiment? And he says yes or no. And then you move on to the next stage. And so amongst all of just that research, when you've compiled enough and you have enough data, you start writing papers or you start applying for conference proceedings. And it's at that point where you have to put all of your thoughts into a nice, concise document and go through review processes kind of back and forth with your supervisor, or you can just submit if they trust you that much, but that I don't think that would happen. And eventually you'll get promoted again. And now there's kind of junior students below you. So now you have the most experience in your particular area and you'll teach those students. And so there's this kind of progression where all the students kind of do the same research for a while, but you're getting now taught by the students instead of the supervisor. Of course, the supervisor is always there to help. But eventually you'll get assigned a project now, and that project will have specific tasks and you'll do those tasks, which may have a different field than the student that taught you. So then you'll become the senior researcher about that particular experiment. So you'll teach the more juniors below you. And it's kind of just a revolving cycle of learning and then teaching, because that's how your research lab becomes better and better.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, how you kind of can progress through all those different positions. And then I'm going to pass over to Jashan to share the roles and responsibilities that she had when she was doing research.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Marie. My roles and responsibilities, there was a lot of data analysis in my recent research experience, mostly because when I was working, it was all online. So I didn't get to go on site, or typically we would go out and not interview, but have conversations with the city council, because it was all about transportation. So I didn't get to do all of that exciting part, but so it was mostly data analysis and learning how to use different softwares like ArcGIS, and then doing a lot of literature reviews too. And then the last portion was all a huge chunk of the writing process of my research paper. But I really do wish that it was more hands-on, or if it was in person, that would be more exciting. But it still was a lot of fun.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing. So that wraps up our question and answers. I think we answered all of them that have been submitted. So I just want to take a minute to thank the panelists for sharing their experiences and answering all of your great questions. And I'm going to pass it over to Shannon to finish off today.
Thanks, Marie. Really, I'm just going to reiterate what Marie just said. I'm so glad that everybody came to join us today for the webinar. And really, just please take note of the information we have on the slide in front of you. If you have any questions or that you want to reach out to Jashan, please do that. For NSERC or USRA or IUSRA, please contact Samantha through SOE advising. And of course, if you're thinking of graduate studies or have any questions about our master's program, please reach out to me. I'm Shannon Hall. Would love to hear from you, and you can reach me at engineering.graduate@ubc.ca. And I would also like to thank our panelists for joining us today. It's been awesome having you.